Look at the reach of this map. Under Chandragupta, Bindusara, and finally Ashoka, this single administration governed a territory stretching from the mountains of Afghanistan down to the forests of Karnataka. Ashoka unified this geography not just through force, but through a shared moral code and a centralized bureaucracy. For nearly a century, the lion capital stood as the primary symbol of an ancient superpower's political authority. In 232 BCE, that center of gravity shifted. Emperor Ashoka died in the palace at Pataliputra, leaving the world's most powerful throne vacant. Within 50 years, the administration dissolved and the borders retracted. The largest empire in Indian history vanished before the next generation could even secure the throne. No outside invasion caused this collapse. The empire succumbed to internal structural failures that had been quietly building for decades. The first failure was a lack of clear-cut rules for inheritance. The Mauryan dynasty never established a formal process for who should take the throne upon an emperor's death. This missing legal framework invited chaos. Family infighting determined the next ruler, eventually handing control to successors like Dasharatha and Samprati, men who lacked the experience to manage such a vast, complex territory. We see the evidence of this decline in the historical record. Ashoka's administration is documented in deep stone carvings across the subcontinent. His successors, however, left behind so little evidence that their reigns are often reconstructed from fragments and religious legends. Ruling an empire that spanned from Afghanistan to the south required a leader with immense personal influence. The system was designed to function only if a strong figurehead was at the center to hold the distant provinces in orbit. Because the state was so highly centralized, the health of the entire empire depended on the personality of the monarch. When weak leaders took the throne, the institutions they commanded began to stall. Financial pressure added to the political instability. During his final years, Ashoka spent heavily on public welfare, building hospitals, roads, and thousands of massive religious monuments like the Sanchi Stupa. This chart illustrates the building crisis. While military and bureaucracy costs climbed, tax revenues stagnated. To cover the deficit, they turned to currency devaluation, minting silver coins with lower purity, stripping its value to pay immediate expenses. Efforts to clear new land for agriculture failed to produce the expected yields. The state was simply spending more than the land could provide. A state's strength is ultimately dictated by its treasury. By the time Ashoka's grandsons took power, the Mauryan treasury was empty. As the money ran out, the geographic breakdown began. With a bankrupt capital and weak leadership, distant provinces realized they no longer had to fear or follow Pataliputra. Trade routes became unsafe. Bandits operated freely, cutting off the flow of goods and stopping tax collection. External powers noticed the instability. The Indo-Greeks, seeing the chaos in the borderlands, began moving into the weakened Northwest territories. The crisis eventually reached the military. Soldiers went unpaid, faced food shortages, and were often left at the mercy of local governors, who had stopped sending resources back to the capital. When soldiers are no longer fed or paid by the state, their loyalty shifts. The army stopped serving the emperor and began following whichever local general could provide for them. By 184 BCE, the empire was a hollow shell. The last Mauryan king, Brihadratha, stood before a parade of his military forces for an inspection. His own commander-in-chief, Pushyamitra Shunga, stepped forward and assassinated the emperor in front of his army. No one in the ranks moved to defend the king. The soldiers simply watched the dynasty end. The army's indifference revealed the truth. They were no longer defending a living state. Brihadratha was the head of an institution that had already failed to pay its soldiers, secure its borders, or manage its succession. The Mauryan collapse serves as a specific historical lesson. Succession struggles, a bankrupt treasury, and a mutinous military turned the subcontinent's largest empire into a memory. Without functional institutions to support its weight, the empire was lost.